Locked On Islanders here. The preseason is over. It's time to get ready for the real thing. We look at the final transactions, plus a review of Saturday's preseason finale against the Rangers, some key takeaways from that, a very special Islanders birthday of the day, and a whole lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Locked On Islanders podcast. Gil Martin, so glad to be with you here on this Monday, the Monday where we're getting ready to start the 2021-22 NHL season getting underway Thursday night for the Islanders in Raleigh against the Carolina Hurricanes. We will have full previews. We're going to look ahead to the season. But first, we'll talk about some transactions the team made. We will look at some key takeaways from the Islanders' preseason finale against the New York Rangers. And we have a very special Islanders birthday of the day on today's show. One of the most important and one of the most popular Islanders of all time. So excited to talk about that and to look back at what may be the most magic moment in New York Islanders history. Want to thank everybody here for being part of the Locked On Islanders family and for making Locked On Islanders your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. If you've got something Islanders related on your mind, if you've got a question, a comment, a topic that you'd like us to talk about, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at NYRVSNYI, and we'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings as we get ready to kick off the 2021-2022 NHL season. So let's start with some key takeaways from Saturday's preseason finale. And thankfully, it is indeed the finale. Season now, Islanders done with that. And look, you know what? 3-2 in 5 preseason games. If you basically get 8 points out of, those 5 games, carry that over the course of a season, and that's a very good thing. Barry Trotz said before the game that this lineup that he put out there would be 98% of the Islanders' opening lineup. And what did we see? Well, we had Barzal, Lee, and Palmieri as the number 1 line. You still had Pajot, Parise, and Wallstrom as the 3rd line. Your 4th line was Matt Martin, still not in the lineup. So you had Tzidikis, Ross John, and Cal Clutterbuck. Barry Trotz did not say at this point whether Matt Martin will be ready to go Thursday when the season gets underway against the Carolina Hurricane, but he did say that once Matt Martin returns to the lineup, it will be a situation where he will obviously have that job back. So all of that, things to take into consideration, and obviously encouraging that the New York Islanders were able to score 4 goals in this game, to do well on the power play as well. And that one of the things that we saw that I think is a key takeaway was Anders Lee and the way Lee was playing. Because really, Anders Lee, an important part of this Islanders team. We still, he played a preseason game before Saturday, and he well, but he looked a lot more comfortable in this game against the Rangers offensively. And, he had a 3-point night, scored some goals. That always is encouraging. And that's something we need to see from this top line. Obviously, you lose Jordan Eberle. You have to make adjustments when that happens. You have Palmieri coming in. You want to develop that chemistry between Kyle Palmieri, Anders Lee, and Mathew Barzal. And over the last 2 preseason games, I think we definitely saw a lot more effective chemistry on that first line. Another thing that we definitely saw on the defense pairings, I think they're coming more into focus now after the preseason is over. Obviously, Pelech and Pulock are the top pairing. We all knew that, but we weren't 100% sure about the other 2 pairings. And if this last preseason game is any indication, you have Andy Green pairing with Scotty Mayfield, and then you have Noah Dobson and Big Zdeno Chara. Which one is designated the second pair? Which one is designated the third pair? Your guess right now is as good as mine, but those are the initial pairings on defense to start the 2021-2022 season. And I love the pairing of Dobson and Chara. To me, that is a situation where Dobson and Chara, Noah Dobson is still developing his game. He's still learning, and he can learn a lot from playing with a veteran like Zdeno Chara. Chara will cover for him in those situations where he takes a little bit of a gamble and it may not always pay off. And again, overall, positive developments with that pairing. Now, again, Anders Lee, 2 goals, 1 assist. He had the first goal to me was particularly beautiful. It was a nice slap shot coming off the rush. And Barry Trotz referred to Lee after the game on Saturday as being a beast. So, look, he's coming back from a severe injury that required surgery, the torn ACL, and he had the 2 goals and an assist. Overall, here's what Mathew Barzal said. I thought the last game his feet wet and did his thing. I thought tonight, which is Saturday night, this is a quote from Barzy after the game, I think tonight he looked a lot more comfortable. That's nice to see. It's more nice to see for the boys that he's back doing his thing and that he's strong and healthy. And I think that can't overlook that. That is vital for the New York Islanders to have a healthy and productive Anders and a healthy and productive top line. So far, so good. Now, defensively, this team did not look as sharp as they usually do, but it's a veteran team. And look, they played 5 preseason games. If they looked good or better than good in 4 of the 5 preseason games, that's something we have to talk about. That's a good sign. And, look, hopefully this last preseason game, the shakiness on defense is more of an aberration and everything will work out just fine. So still a lot to talk about. We have some roster moves, some players placed on waivers, and Eric Gustafsson's fate has been decided. We'll talk about all of that and a whole lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, and you're watching sports highlights on your phone. And yeah, you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Crosschecks live NHL season preview show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. It'll be on the Locked On NHL YouTube page Tuesday, October 12th from 6 to 7. Andrew and Mary tee up the new NHL season with a look at the key storylines from around the league, featuring drop-ins from our roster of local NHL hosts, fantasy insights from Locked On Fantasy Hockey Scott Cullen, and an award and Stanley Cup playoff prediction. So make sure you check that out on the Locked On NHL YouTube page Tuesday between 6 and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So the Islanders making a move. Eric Gustafsson was on the island on a TO. Looks like the Islanders will not be signing him to a contract, and he appears to be heading off to Chicago to join the Chicago Blackhawks. So Gustafsson not going to make the Islanders' final roster. I thought he looked pretty good, all things considered, but at the end of the day, the Islanders taking a pass. Now, to me, the reason I would have signed Gustafsson is because he can do some of the things offensively that the Islanders need done. And when you lose your top on the power play, your top defenseman, you need to find a way up. But it really becomes a question of trusting Noah Dobson and thinking that, Nick Leddy's gone. Noah Dobson becomes the new Nick Leddy as far as quarterbacking the power play and what have you. And you trust Andy Green and Scotty Mayfield and Zdeno Chara to help fill in. And, maybe your eighth defenseman, if necessary, steps into the lineup, whether that's Robin Salo, who I think will be headed down to the minors to start the season, or whether it's Sebastian Aho, who certainly does have power play ability and capability. All of that gives you opportunity a little more. So we'll see what the Islanders end up doing. Yeah, it's going to be a situation where the Islanders have a lot of things to decide, not just headed. And there's hinting from Barry Trotz that Lou have not yet finished assembling the roster. There's still some moves he wants to do. Rosters, official rosters done, due into the end by 5 Eastern today. 2 more players were let go over the weekend, both of them veterans. Now, they're not going, but both and we passed through waivers on Saturday. And that realistically means that if you're 30, you would have more Hickey waivers again if you want to bring them back up. Now, Panique, I thought, was very likely to be one of the Black Aces. And right now it looks like he will at least probably start the season with which we're in the AAL. It's one of those things. Hickey passed through waivers, so it becomes a question of how the Islanders are going to handle this. Who is going to fill in spots? he had been asked on chart by a number of players. See that. You get rid of Gustafsson headed on the depth chart, and it just didn't look like Hickey was going to be the guy to fill in. If anything, he was 8th or 9th player on this depth chart, depending on what happened with Gustafsson. But, right now, if they wait 30 days, they can always bring him back. But it's the $2.5 million cap hit that really makes things the most difficult for Thomas Hickey to place on this Islanders roster. With Panique, the cap hit, because Detroit is still paying part of his salary, his cap $0.375 million. So, I'm a little more surprised about him being sent down. And the other big question that still is hanging out there is what happens to Kiefer. Again, Bell probably doesn't benefit that much from being sent back to Bridgeport at this point. He has done all he can Bridgeport, but he doesn't have a place in the NHL in the Islanders lineup. There just isn't room for it. So what is Lou Lamoriello going to do? It would not shock me to see Lou Lamoriello try to work out a trade for involving a player like Kiefer Bellows, and probably make that trade as part of a bigger deal that frees up a little more cap space. Right now, the Islanders have a lot of cap space, and they need to find a way to increase their available cap space if they hope to make a run at, a player a little bit later on in the season. And remember, important to remember that the salary cap is calculated on a day-by-day basis. So we've talked a lot about the idea of the whether they look for a person who becomes available via today. If you wait till the trade, you can either making sick it not as much because it's maybe a lot of balls to finalize their older. We're getting close to pieces are starting to come. So up in this minute. Wait on Monday. If there's exactly what I want to do, like, got a lot of come birthday, the latest single man in Islanders are still to come on episode of On Wax. Today's episode is brought to you by Bar. Do you know that Built Bar has delicious flavors? There really is something for everyone. And when you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their favorites. And it's easy to tell why when you hear this lineup of permanent flavors: coconut, raspberry, mint brownie, cookies and cream, German chocolate, and my personal favorite, salted caramel. I love that combination of sweets. It really is great. And the best thing is, not only are Built Bar for the best tasting, but they are healthy as well. Check the macros. Each bar has just between 17 grams of protein, only 130 to 180 calories per bar, depending on the flavor. flavor, 4, maybe 5 grams of sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. And Built Bar is the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Go to Built.com right now. Use the promo code LOCK15 and you'll get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. And this one is a special one. We want to wish a very happy 69th birthday to former right wing Bob Nystrom. Nystrom turned 69 Sunday. He was drafted in the 3rd round of the NHL amateur draft, the very first year the Islanders were in the league. Spent most of that first Islanders season at their AHL affiliate in New Haven, but came up 11 games, 1 goal, 2 assists in those 11 contests. But by his second season, Nystrom had become 20 goals. He even had a 30-goal year in 1977-78, 30 goals, 59, both of those being career highs. The previous year, he had 29 goals. So Nystrom, not a sniper by any stretch of the imagination, but great in the corners, digging pucks out, not afraid to be physical, 6'1", 2 pounds, which was pretty big, and Nystrom not afraid to do either. Over 100 penalty minutes a number of times. In his watched him develop from a rookie team that first year who had trouble with his skating, and actually lessons from a skating coach to improve, become a very solid NHL player. And he remained with the team from their first season in 72-73 through the 85-86 season. 900 career NHL regular season games for Bobby Nye, 235 goals, 513 points, 1,248 penalty minutes. He also had 157 playoff games, all with the Islanders, 39 goals, 83 points. His most productive playoff year, 1979-80, of course, 20 games, 9 goals, 18 points, and another career high, 50 penalty minutes. Nystrom was called Mr. Island Flyer because he was a fan favorite, but we're going to go back and look at what may be the most magic moment in Islanders history. Of course, I'm talking about May 24th, 1980, and I wanted to get this in for Bobby Nystrom's birthday and also to get this season, which starts later this week, off on the right foot, in the right state of mind. Flyers, Islanders, Game 6, 1980 Stanley Cup Final. It was the Flyers getting on the board first in this game with Dennis Potvin in the penalty box for cross-checking. Reggie Leach, the Flyers' most natural goal scorer, his 9th in the playoffs from Rick McLeish and Bill Barber at 7:21, and Philadelphia led 1-0. But the Islanders got it back, and they got it back quickly with Mike Busniak in the penalty box for holding. Dennis Potvin, his 6th from Mike Bossy and Brian Trottier at 11:56. Islanders and Flyers tied at 1. Dwayne Sutter gave the Islanders the advantage a little more than 2 minutes later. His 3rd of the playoffs, Clark Gillies and Butch Goring with the helpers at 14:08. 2-1 Islanders, but late in the period, Brian Propp, his 5th from Paul Holmgren and Ken Linsman at 18:58. After one period, Islanders 2, Flyers 2, and the Coliseum was tense. The second period was all Islanders. They got the lead, and again, it was the power play getting the job done. Ben Wilson off for holding. Mike Bossy, his 10th of the playoffs. Bob Bourne and Brian Trottier on the assists at 7:34. 3-2 Islanders. And then Bob Nystrom, our Islanders' birthday of the day, his 8th of the playoffs from John Tonelli with just 14 seconds left on the clock in the second period. 4-2 Islanders, and the Islanders were seemingly 20 minutes away from their first ever Stanley Cup championship. But Flyers, being a good team as they were, they fought back. Bob Daly, his fourth of the playoffs from Ken the Rat Linsman and Paul Holmgren at 147. That made it a 4-3 game. And then at 6:02 of the third period, the Flyers quickly tie it. John Paddock, his second from Moose DuPont and Rick McLeish. This game headed to overtime. But in the overtime period, in what is the most famous goal in Islanders history and the most memorable, Bob Nystrom, his ninth from Lorne Henning and John Tonelli at 7:11 of the overtime period. And the Islanders went on to win this game 5-4 overtime, what would be their first of 4 straight Stanley Cups in their history. And it was just bedlam at the Nassau Coliseum that day. 2 goals in this game for Nystrom. He was a +1. He had 21 penalty minutes in this contest and 4 shots on goal. But that goal alone made Bobby Nystrom an Islanders immortal and just absolutely a magic moment for the New York Islanders. Billy Smith, 21 saves to earn the win. Islanders went on to win their first of 4 straight Stanley Cups. So we want to wish a day late, a very happy stay to Bobby Nystrom, Mr. Island. And you remember that magic moment in Islanders history, Stanley victory number 1. They say the first one is always the sweetest, and it certainly was for the New York Islanders and their fans. That is what will live on as long as they remember, recalling the specialness of that moment. So great to see it and great to remember it. Thanks again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Tomorrow, we've got an interesting question to discuss, a fan email. We'll start to look ahead. We will know the final roster by tomorrow night, so we'll be able to let you know what the actual final roster is, and we'll start looking ahead to the season opener against the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Host Scott Cullen leans on his decades of fantasy hockey insight and experience every day to help you be the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available on all platforms. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Have a great day, everybody. The season is almost upon us. And of course, let's go Islanders.